Joining us now from Riyadh is Saudi Arabian affairs specialist Ahmed al Ibrahim, and in Amman in Jordan, Hiba Zayadin is there for us. She's a researcher with Human Rights Watch's Middle East and North Africa division. Welcome to the Newsmakers, both of you. Ahmed, if I can start with you. Just as Saudi Arabia is about to lift the ban on women driving, it's arrested these activists. It doesn't really, to the outside world, make sense. What's the explanation?
The explanation is very easy. First of all, there's no link between those people and the initiative of driving. See, the problem is with the foreign media is they look at this initiative as if it's coming as power or a pressure from the human rights activists or from different countries. This decision was taken upon the Saudi people by the Saudi rulers to best suit this kingdom. So the incident happened a couple of days ago. It was a pure incident. Couple individuals, they've been charged with treason. They've been trying to infiltrate the steps and the transformation that this country is doing, and it's going into a very, very fast speed. Those individuals has been warned more over and over and over and over. And then when they've been actually, the government reached their limit, they had to detain them and see, what's feed these fueling, why they are talking to foreign sources, why they are trying to claim things that if it's not within the society, why they are trying to shake the fabric social society of this country. We are going through a very important time. We are trying to take a smart system steps in order to achieve. We've done so many things in the past 3 years, and we're just going to do more. So the last thing is you want to have these little individuals, or as I call them, the little Snowdens, try to do some stuff to destabilize the social fabric. If I would tell your customers and your individual, if they can ping the criminal record, for example, for Jane al-Hadloul from Canada, or they can ping her YouTube channels, you would see one of them what is kind of person that we're dealing with. Those people are, unfortunately, they don't contribute anything to the society except being, shake the social fabric. They want to be in fame. Like it's an individual who would like to throw themselves in front of a speeding bus and claim victory. This is not going to happen.
Okay, Ahmed, sorry, are you saying it's therefore just a coincidence that these activists have been detained while there was that to and fro going on social media, and mainly men saying to the women that you will never drive, and then the women saying, yes, we will drive? Is it just a coincidence they were arrested and detained then?
There's no coincidence. You are talking to an individual that once upon a time I did tweeted that, women should drive. I would like to see my mom drive. I would like to see my sister drive. But that doesn't mean I go shakes and talk to foreign media and try to take reporters or try to bribe somebody in the government in order to give heads up on when things needs to happen. See, there's different. If you are in it for the best for the country, you're going to succeed. If you're in it to bring fame or trying to stabilize the social fabric, you're going to end up in jail in this country.
Okay, Hiba, over to you. What do you know about these detentions?
So I'd like to start with the fact that these women are internationally renowned for their activism in Saudi Arabia. They're very well-respected women. They're professors, writers, intellectuals. Iman al-Nabjan, one of the women that has been named as arrested, who's been arrested, is, has written countless times for international outlets and on women's rights issues. And arrests seem to largely be happening as a way to silence these critics of MBS's reform campaign, in particular because these women have not only demanded the lifting of the driving ban, which is long overdue, but also for their work on advocating for other basic rights. I don't see how these accusations, which are broad, they're vague, they're catch-all phrases used to repress any form of dissent or expression in Saudi Arabia. There's really nothing remarkable about being in contact with international media outlets. And so I think to accuse these women of harming the safety and security of Saudi Arabia simply because they're demanding basic rights is honestly ludicrous. And, especially now that MBS is branding himself as a reformer and a supporter of women's rights and women's advancement in Saudi society.
Hiba, does anybody know where the women are being held? Is there any news since they were detained?
So far, according to Saudi activists, they're being held incommunicado, so they have not been able to contact their families or lawyers.
Ahmed, are there many similar current cases in Saudi Arabia of rights activists being detained? I mean, you've been telling us the line that's coming from the Interior Ministry, that there are certain accusations against these particular rights activists. Are there others in a similar situation? Do you know?
Actually, there is none. If anybody would work for this country and follow the guidelines of Saudi Arabia and follow the guidelines of the religion, which is Islam, which this country is all about, and the Sharia, which this country is all about, this is the biggest human right law in Saudi Arabia. But if I'm going to work against my country and I'm going to do all kinds of stuff, and there are things that the media can talk about it, and there are things they can't. But of course, if you are going to work against the system and against the government and what the initiative and the transformation is going through, you're going to end up like that. If Lujain al-Hadlul and the activists, by the way, they are three women and 4 men. I think the men are equal to the women. In Saudi Arabia, actually, we are not sexist anymore. We got over the women and men. They are compete together. They are on the jobs together. They equally paid together. So as much of those 7 people, and I'm not going to differentiate whether men and women, they are activists as they brand themselves, or internationally they brand them. In Saudi Arabia, there are so many activists. You talk about things within the guidelines of the kingdom and the government, to the best use to the people and to the government. But if you're going to look like Kelly Osbourne and you want to be in Saudi Arabia walking without abaya, this is not going to happen now. Wake up. I mean, until we won't allow, as much as we are trying to be westernized, or we're going to be westernized in our own model, we're not going to accept any Western push to our system. We are Saudis, we are Muslims, and our brand is going to be Saudis. We don't need any Western country to tell us what's right and what's wrong to do in this country.
Hiba, it is true that Mohammed Bin Salman, the Crown Prince, has introduced a number of reforms since he's become, shall we say, the main decision maker behind his father, King Salman. Is there any reason to doubt the sincerity of those? Ahmed is saying that these detentions are for a very particular purpose and don't reflect the reforms that are happening in the country.
I think the reforms that have been promised and that have been introduced are very limited in scope so far. The male guardianship system, which is the most serious impediment to women's rights in Saudi Arabia, is still largely intact. And I think, you know, despite these promises of reform, I mean, the driving ban was long overdue to have been lifted, honestly. And so I still think...
Can I interrupt here, please?
Okay, go on, and then I'll come back to you here, but don't worry, I will let you finish your train of thought. Ahmed, go ahead.
I mean, the issues are travel ban and guardianship. Saudi Arabia is allowed, you know, women is going to drive in a couple days, for God's sake. The male guardian system, it needs time to get. So, you know, women are already traveling through the airport within the consent of their guardians. You know, it's not restricted in the airport, but the law is not out there yet. So we allowed women driving. Guardianship is going to happen. What's next? What's on the file?
Okay.
What's going to happen?
Okay.
It's not enough. Listen, the problem is with the Western media and human rights, one thing, don't compare or do your benchmark about Saudi Arabia to perfection, because there's no other country in the world is perfect. If I were you, I would focus on the, you know, humanitarian issues in the workforce in Qatar, or the people who's getting executed in Iran, or the generals who's getting executed in Turkey.
Okay, Ahmed, the world's media is looking at those stories. At the moment, you're here to talk to us about Saudi Arabia. Hiba, over to you.
Just to make the headlines.
Exactly. Okay. Right now, we're talking about these really grave and concerning arrests. That's what we're talking about. The male guardianship system has not been abolished yet. That is absolutely fact right now. It has not been abolished. Women still require approval from their male guardians to make a range of critical decisions, you know, including traveling outside the country, renewing their passports, you know, and even getting married and being released from prison. So this system is still intact, and it is still the greatest impediment to women's rights activists. I think what matters today, what we need to be talking about today, is how grave these arrests have been, and this escalating crackdown on women's rights activists, which honestly has been shocking to us, given the rhetoric of Mohammed bin Salman, especially as he was doing his whirlwind public relations tour in the US and in the UK.
Okay, Ahmed, so it's my understanding that if these women are found guilty, they could get 20 years in prison, possibly worse. When do you think the government is going to announce that they've been given access to lawyers and that they will be allowed to present their cases in the way that they would like, that international law presumably would like to see happen, at least given access to lawyers?
You know, as you know, Saudi Arabia is part of the G20, and Saudi Arabia is abided by the world law. And by Saudi Arabia actually go and picking up these individuals, actually this is the last resort that the Saudi government would do. They have enough evidence on those people to charge them with treason. They already maybe have access to lawyers preparing the case, trying to detain them for a bigger look into the case. So the kingdom and the law over here is on their side. The government are much on mercy from an individual is charged with treason in Saudi Arabia rather than somebody who is in charge of treason in the United States. So the law is going to take its time. It's on the government clock to decide when it's going to happen, but it's happening because those individuals, they have rights in their prisons, and it's going to happen when it's going to happen. Just I want to go back to your guest for the guardianship. The guardianship, we're not going to do the guardianship on the clock.
Okay, no, Ahmed, I haven't got time for that, really, honestly, because time is out. Seriously, Ahmed, time is out, but Hiba, I'll give you 30 seconds to sum up your thoughts about this. Just 30 seconds.
Okay, it is clear that this was a calculated move to shut down all activism in the country that calls for anything that doesn't fit into MBS's reform campaign. These women should be celebrated, not punished. They should be partners in a real reform in Saudi Arabia, not publicly slandered and viciously slandered in local state media as they are today, being branded traitors, which honestly is ludicrous if you look at the records of these women and what they have contributed to Saudi society. They are pillars of Saudi society.
Saudi is trying to be a meritocracy society.
Okay, we got it. Hiba Zayadin and Ahmed al Ibrahim, we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.